Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Listen Up Podcast. It's your boy Brandon.
This is your boy Sam.
Hey, man, we're back with another episode, and what's awesome, man. This is the first episode I've been on since we've reached, 1,000 subscribers, man. So I just want to say thank y'all, man. Thank you to every single person who's listened, who's retweeted the show, who's followed the show, who's been a part, man, since the very beginning. Y'all day ones, man. We're gonna have to find whoever was there when we was on the what was that SoundCloud when we first started out, man, on the SoundCloud era. So we're gonna have to find something, maybe, if you was the first subscriber, I don't know who you are. We probably should have documented that at the point. But if you was there since day one, man, we rock with you, we appreciate it. And now, a couple years later, for us to have reached, a goal that I can tell you when we first started, we wasn't even planning on. I could say we weren't planning on even getting there. It was kind of like, let's just do it. Let's see what happens. And that's kind of really been the thought process about most of it. Let's just do it and see what happens, man. And then also, man, shout out to Chris who filled in last episode, man. It was a fun episode listening in just from the other side of the audience, man. So, but yeah, man, I just want to say thank you, man. Thank you to every single subscriber, man, from day one, and the new listeners, man. Welcome, Sam.
Absolutely, man.
How you feeling, man? How you feeling, man? It's been a minute since we potted. It's been a minute since we talked, man. I ain't gonna lie, this baby has taken over my entire life. That's apparently what they do. That. Between that and work, man, it's been a struggle.
It's been a trip because I think I've been kind of dealing with like a little bit of a move. I finally moved everything into, not everything, but I moved my podcast and stuff to my girl place because we kind of finna start cohabitating soon here. So
big steps.
Big steps. So I've been kind of in the middle, moving and trying to jig and jab. Man, I think I got us 2 guests lined up. So I got 2 pretty good guests. I'm working on trying to get up to about 10 guests for the off season, and it'd be something that's surrounding Florida State football, but not so. I told you, and I think I've told people in this podcast, like I'm not gonna create fake hype about things that's no sense talking about. You know what I'm saying?
Ain't nothing happened. Listen, there's nothing happening in Florida State football outside of that schedule.
I'm not doing a breaking. I'm not going to do a breaking. We got a schedule release, and let's see. No, I'm not. I mean, I get why people have to do that because they monetization and the sponsors and everything they have to do. But I can't. Yeah. I can't sit here and pretend to care about the schedule before April. I mean, before the spring game. Like after the spring game, I like to reevaluate the schedule. I mean, we're gonna talk about the schedule, but I wasn't finna run to the podcast to have a whole schedule breakdown. You know what I'm saying? So
and that's what's fun about being Sam, because I don't think I text Sam until like 3 days after the schedule came out, and there was a lot of hype. And I was like, "Hey man, you want to do a part about the schedule?" He was like, "Yeah, we'll do it this weekend, I think." Like neither one of us was like, "Oh yeah, let's run and get this, get this schedule out here." You know what I mean? Let's run here and talk about this thing. Neither one of us was like,
"Yeah,
we'll get to it."
I know since I know we did talk about the Patrick Surtain hire with Chris from Sporadics or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So that we did discuss that, and so I guess today we will dive into a little schedule talk. We'll dive into a little college football landscape. I love talking about that. You know what's crazy? I typed up all this stuff in the private chat, and it's all gone now. But whatever. Anyway. But so we're gonna get into all that, man. What you think about the NFL playoffs, man? The Jags kind of we didn't talk since the Jags lost.
We haven't talked since the Jags lost. Listen, man, I took everything that happened this season as just gravy. You know what I mean? Like from the moment we've picked first the last 2 seasons. You know what I mean? So if you tell me we're gonna make the playoffs the following season, I'm taking it hands down. Then you say, all right, we're gonna win it against the Titans, which again, we've lived in this city our entire lives, so we've seen the Titans ruin a season. You know what I mean? And so that was definitely the game that I saw. Man, we ain't gonna win this game. I can tell you going in, I wouldn't have picked Florida. I wouldn't have picked the Jaguars to win the game. So then, they win it in a great win. Then you get to the playoffs and they down 27-0, and I was like, it was a good run. You know what I mean? We ain't deserve to be here. We probably a year too early anyway. Let's just go. You know what I mean? It don't even matter. I kind of go out to the garage, take a little smoke break. I come back, and I'm like they fighting a little bit. You know what I mean? Like I came back after they had scored. I think they made it 14-27, and so I was like, all right, they fighting a little bit. I'll stay tuned in. And so I stayed tuned in a little bit, and they end up winning. So at that point, I don't care what happened. You know what I mean? Like I didn't care
Right.
way early into the season as to everything happened, because at this point I could already classify the season and say this is a good team. This is a good season just based on all the expectations. This is a good season.
Yeah.
Nobody expected them to win no Super Bowl, and I definitely did. So going
Hmm.
out and losing to KC, man, I don't care. It didn't. When I tell you, it didn't. I didn't feel no different. I actually felt good about it. You know what I mean? Because I thought they
Right.
played tough. I think they're a year or two away from the Super Bowl. They got some changes they got
Right.
to make. We'll see what happened in the draft. But man, I loved it. I loved every minute of this season. Um, I love to watch the maturity of Trevor Lawrence. That was the thing that was really impressive, because it's funny. We said it with Jordan Travis. When quarterbacks find that confidence, man, and the game slow down for them, it's a fun game to watch. If they're a good quarterback, it's fun to watch,
Yeah.
because then they start having fun and they can start making some different decisions and making better decisions. And I thought with Trevor,
Right.
man, it was just a year of confidence. Oh man, I can do
Absolutely.
this. I can play this game. Yeah, I can play this game.
Yeah.
And to watch him just kind of mature into the quarterback he was his back half, man, was just something fun to watch. So now I'm happy for the Jags. I mean, they added in Calvin Ridley next season to already receiving quarter that I like a lot. You know what I mean? So you add in Calvin Ridley. Some people talk about D Hop maybe coming on board. Man, give me all the tools. You know what I mean? Give everybody you want. Let's get them. So yeah, give me everybody. I
Yeah.
don't care who it is. Yeah, yeah. The more options, the
Yeah.
better. So yeah, I'm definitely excited about the Jaguars.
Yeah. I feel good about it. It's crazy. Um, because people kept saying, I felt like they had to overspend last year when it came to free agency to get players in here, and they
Yep.
did overspend. And now they up against it with the cap a little bit, and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
too upset about that because you had to do what you had to do. It'd have been disappointing to me had you not made the playoffs after spending all that money, but you did make the playoffs and you won a game
Yeah, you
in the
want to
playoffs.
playoff
So
game.
that
Yeah.
and you won a playoff game. So to me, the money was justified in my opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but I feel really good about what the Jags are going at. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna have to find a
Mm-hmm.
way to people. It's weird. Like for some apparent reason, all the Jaguar fans want to ship off offensive linemen. Like, let's get rid of this offensive lineman. Let's get signed. Let's re-sign this tight end. I'm like, dude, tight ends are not more important than offensive linemen in the NFL. You
Mm-mm.
know, it's just not. We got to stop this.
No.
So,
No, you need, yeah, you need keep their, if they are competent offensive linemen, you want to keep them around. The turnstiles. If
yeah,
you
yeah,
you got a turnstile
yeah,
out there, then you
yeah.
got, yeah, he got to go. But I don't feel like none of those guys were turnstiles. I feel like they held their own against
No, they
good
wasn't. They
defensive
was they
line.
was a much better O line. So if anything, you want to upgrade, you want to add to what you already got on the offensive line at the guard position. So hopefully they do that right now,
Mm-hmm.
man. But it's gonna be good because now we got a legitimate, certified, in my opinion, top five quarterback. With probably a
Yeah,
top five
agreed.
coach. So if
Agreed.
they can draft well, and they had two pretty good last two drafts, so they got to put a third great draft together. They can put a third great
Mm-hmm.
draft together. I think you I think you probably have something a little special brewing. You got to do what Kansas City have done. Kansas City let guys go and drafted so well. I mean, I think they said they drafted
Mm-hmm.
7 guys and 6 of them or 5 of them are starters and 3 of them are rotational guys. So Jazz got to hit like
That's
that
a good
in the
job.
offseason.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's how you have to draft once you start paying that quarterback because it's coming.
Yeah,
It's
it's
coming.
definitely
It's
coming.
50 and
Here-
50.
Here's
It's $50 million a year coming.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's gonna eat up. That's
Yeah.
gonna eat up your cap. You're gonna have to have that money for him. Here's what I didn't really respect NFL coaching. I didn't respect really a lot of coaching, and because I always thought your players would take you there. Doug Marone made me believe in coaches this season because I
Doug
mean
Peterson.
Urban Meyer was real. Doug Peterson, yeah, Doug
Yeah.
Peterson, because Urban Meyer was real bad, man. I mean, I didn't realize how bad Urban Meyer was until seeing it against Doug Peterson. You know what I'm saying? Like understanding, like, oh, there's big levels in this coaching rank. Some of these guys
Mm.
really freestyling it, don't have no idea what they're doing, and it was clear. But watching Doug Peterson
Yeah.
this year move and work, I was like, just to figure out the way he was able to galvanize a locker room that was pretty much fractured. You know what I mean? From the year before, not really knowing what to expect with a coach kicking players and stuff like that. Like it was a bad toxic environment over there. For him to get those guys to believe and then somehow win, it made me respect coaching. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah,
I
I
used
think
to I never
they
really
called
gave a
Doug.
lot. I said there was some really good coaches and everybody else was just kind of in the middle. But no, it's Doug is a part of that elite group in my opinion.
I don't, it's crazy. I don't know if he. Well, see, it's hard to. It's hard to get into the specifics of how great a coach is unless you got um you need like a bigger sample set, right? You can't just do it in 1 year and be a
Yeah,
great coach, or you can't have a one bad year and be a terrible coach. So you need,
true.
you kind of need it. You need a bigger sample set. So we'll see where he at in 3 years, but he has won a Super Bowl, so he's proven that he can do that. So
Very true.
let's get into the schedule. If I
I
got it right here. So what was your initial thoughts of FSU schedule?
what's funny was my initial thought. So I've taken a little bit of a social media ban, right? Like I've literally I wasn't even on Twitter until he sent the message like, yo, let's do the pod or whatever. I hadn't been on social media in a good little minute. But I was on
Mm-hmm.
social media that day. I was on Twitter, just Twitter that day to I wanted to see the reaction to the schedule. And I found it fascinating because I looked at the schedule and I said, well, we're going undefeated. Like that's literally how I looked at the schedule. I was like, well, we're
Mm-hmm.
going undefeated and good. Let's see what the playoffs look like.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at it and everybody was like, I got us like 10-2. And I was like, wait, I'm confused. And then it kind of reminded me of last year. Last year, everybody talked about how great Johnny Wilson was, how much improved Jordan Travis was, how Benson was
Mm-hmm.
this, and all these pieces, and how great, Azariah Thomas was going to be. And I listened to them talk about it, and then they were like, yeah, I got us going 6-6.
Right.
And I was like, wait, that don't make sense. I listened to
Right.
y'all tell me how great everything was and how improved everything was, and yet the schedule, what y'all are saying the schedule is, I don't see that matching. And so I looked
Right.
at this the same way. I looked at the schedule and said, based on what Florida State's goal is to win the championship. I think we've heard enough from inside the program, enough from from the Jordan Travis and other players. There was an article on, I forgot, one of their new editions or whatever it is, where he said, no, their goal is to win a championship. I want to be a part of a championship team.
Right.
So I'm looking at this schedule and I don't see anybody on here who we shouldn't beat or who we can't beat. So my overall impression of the schedule was go get the job done.
Yeah, I think you look at the schedule. My initial thoughts was, to me, if you think you're an elite team or a playoff team, this is pretty manageable,
That's
pretty
correct.
easy schedule, in my opinion. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think your toughest stretch is what? Wake Forest, Pitt, Miami. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that should
That's
be
definitely a
pretty
tough stretch.
manageable. Yeah, I mean that's pretty manageable, right? I mean,
Right. But
you're
again, you
gonna be
got
favorite.
a Sam Hartman-less Wake Forest team.
Yeah, I mean Pitt's gonna be tough on defense because they always tough on defense.
Yeah.
Then you got
What's up?
Miami. You said what?
You never know when Miami gonna be.
Well, yeah, true, but I'm just saying, like, you just look at that little small stretch right there. That's probably your toughest stretch. I mean, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, Duke shouldn't scare you.
Not
Southern
even a
Miss,
little bit.
Boston College, Clemson will scare you. You know,
Nope.
LSU,
No.
Southern Miss, Boston College. None of that. I mean, none of that is very daunting to me.
No.
you
Yeah, I'm
know,
saying we're getting Clemson in September. Like
yeah.
that's a good thing. You know what I mean? They're gonna be bringing in a new quarterback, right? It's gonna take some adjustment, and
I
so
don't think
having
that's gonna
Clemson.
be. So let's talk about that because I keep hearing people
Mm,
say that, and I don't think that's true. Like that Lincoln Riley system is pretty easy to install. Like that system is, I mean that system is put in, installed, and it's pretty much operating at peak levels by week one. I mean,
but we don't know. We also don't know who this quarterback is, though. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, but
I'm
yeah, we
not
do.
overly high
Yeah, we
on.
do.
Okay, well, let me ask you this: is he Trevor Lawrence? Is he
Well, he don't
the
have to
top
be, but
elite?
he don't have to be that though. But we know he's a good football player. I mean, we watched him beat. He beat up on North Carolina, right? I mean, he
I
did. He
think
beat up on
he's
North
a.
Carolina.
Everybody beat up on North Carolina though.
Okay, but I'm saying though, he has experience. He beat up on North Carolina. He did play in the Tennessee game. You know, they got beat up a little bit, roughed up a little bit in the Tennessee game. But I mean, he wasn't terrible in that game. I mean, they played bad
He
as a
wasn't great
team.
either though.
Right, he
I guess
wasn't. But I'm
what I'm.
saying he was but he also was a true freshman. So we do. I mean, he's a
Mhm.
good player. He's a good player. I mean, just being honest, like he's a good player. You know.
I think what I
Um,
do. I think he's a good player. I'm just not sure he's
and then
elite.
we've seen him come in in spot duty and take the team down the field when they had to score points in crucial situations last year when they took DJ out the game. So this idea that we don't, I mean, people acting like they're starting some true freshman. I mean, he has experience playing football. And then we thought the offense last year was terrible, and they brought in an elite offensive coordinator who we think he is pretty good, right? He installed that system at TCU first year. They go to the college football playoffs. They score points. That was 1 year. They did that in 1 year. So it's not crazy that they're gonna come in. Am I lying? Like does that sound crazy?
I disagree. I think that offensive coordinator is okay. I don't believe I do see what he did at TCU, but I also think they're playing different football over there at TCU.
Hold on for a sec. Well, the Big 12 was better than the ACC last year.
They were.
It's clearly better than the ACC. I mean, it's 100% better than the ACC. The ACC was terrible last year. Their first, Clemson's first games before they played Florida State. They played Duke, Charleston Southern, and FAU.
3 warm-ups.
I mean, they're probably going to be operating at pretty much peak efficiency. I mean, you're going to get a good Clemson.
But here's the other thing: they will not have had a legit test until they played us.
Okay, that's fine. But if you took our schedule and flipped it around, we would say, oh yeah, we don't play them a cupcakes before we play with Clemson. We can prep. I mean, they got at least 2 weeks. They got to prep for Duke. Duke's not a great team, but Duke could beat you if you're not operating where you need to operate.
Yep.
But Charleston Southern, FAU, I mean, they should score. They're gonna beat those teams like a drum. So once you get past those two, then you play Florida State. I mean, I'm not saying Clemson's gonna beat Florida State. I'm just saying this idea that, we got him in a perfect spot. I mean, when you playing a good team, you don't get a good team in a perfect spot. You're playing a good football team. You got to beat them, right? So
that's where I do.
And I think, I mean, like if you play Alabama, if you had to play Alabama or Georgia, does it matter what spot you play them in? Do you think they give a damn? Like, okay, man, line up. You can line up next week, or you can line up in a month. It don't matter to us. You know what I'm saying? So I think the Clemson game is interesting because they put it early, which I like, because if you play them late, it puts pressure on whatever team loses to not lose again, right, in the conference.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that makes it. I think that makes it kind of fascinating. To be honest with you, I do like that. I do like that idea.
Yeah, and I agree with that. So from a schedule standpoint, I think. But here's the thing, right? The Clemson LSU pairing, like in September, does put a lot of pressure because you can't lose both of them, right? Like, and that's where I think from a pressure standpoint for Florida State, they have to make sure you go out there and take care of business. Ideally, I think they should win both of them. I think they're better than LSU. I think LSU has lost a lot. I think they should win the game. I also think they're better than Clemson, so they should. In my opinion, they should beat both of them. But if you lose to LSU, then Clemson becomes a must-win if you still want to have the championship on there, because the committee will look at it and say, all right, we can deal with a first game loss to LSU or whatever. A 2-loss Florida State team is not getting into the playoffs. And again, I'm not talking about from my perspective. I'm talking about from the team.
But if you're a 2-loss Florida State team and then you beat Clemson in the ACC championship game, they're gonna forgive that other loss. I mean, still FSU, and they'll take you over TCU. They'll take you over 100%. Oklahoma State if they got one loss. I mean, they would.
And they're gonna come in with all the offseason hype as well, and possibly potential Heisman quarterback. Yeah.
Right. And we've been known to beat down on really bad teams, and there's a lot of really bad teams on that schedule. I mean, Florida State.
Oh no, it's gonna be some hangman play on the sideline for some of them games.
Yeah, I mean because. Yeah, I mean, it's
a bad group. Yeah, it's some dudes that it's some teams out there where
you got Boston College who's gonna be bringing in a new quarterback,
it's a hangman game. Yeah,
pretty much a new offensive line. Southern Miss, you're gonna beat the brakes out of Southern Miss. Boston College, and you got Virginia Tech who's gonna be terrible.
That's another hangman game. Yeah,
Syracuse is pretty much gonna be terrible. I mean, they lost their offensive coordinator.
Yep.
I mean,
Babies gets fired this season.
Wake Forest.
No Sam Hartman.
You got North Alabama. I mean, you're going to have like 6 blowouts. 5 or 6 blowouts on the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So, then we can all do that whole thing. We're like, oh, man, we can play with anybody in the country. See? Look, We did the whole thing we did last year.
But we can play. Here's the thing, but I don't disagree
No,
with
I'm not
that as
saying
a.
we can't.
I
No,
don't
I'm not
disagree
saying we
with that
can't. I'm
as a
just
take
saying.
where they say we can play with anybody in the country. I agree with that. Like if they can
Yeah, but
play
I'm
with
saying though,
LSU and they can play with Clemson and they beat
they
both of
can play
them,
with them.
you can play with anybody in the country. Can they
Yeah,
beat anybody in the
yeah,
country? That's a whole nother story. But they can
right.
play with anybody in the country, and in my opinion, that's not necessarily the worst thing that I've heard people say. I think they can play with
No, I'm just
anybody.
saying. Well, I'm just saying though, it's gonna be enough. It's enough easy food on that table that you can look really good in the playoff committee eyes by beating down on some of these teams, and then if you do lose a Clemson early, that by the time you play them again in an ACC championship and you win that game, you'll have a legit argument to be the number 4
And
team.
that's if Clemson make it. Because again, I don't know
Exactly
how good this
right.
Clemson team is. You know what I mean? I'm not sure that Florida State will be if Florida State is to win that game. I'm not sure Florida State will be the only loss. Like again, I'm not denying that Clemson is Clemson. Clemson has done enough to where even though I don't like them, they've done enough to prove to me that they're a good team, right? But
Yeah,
I'm just not. Again, they lost a lot. I said they were going to
I
lose. They
think
were
I
going to
think.
take a step back with the coordinators that were gone. They replaced
Mhm.
one of them. We'll see what happens on the other side.
Yeah, LSU's. If you really want to put money to the savings account, you got to beat LSU. That puts money to the savings account, right? That gives
100%.
you the opportunity to slip up once or twice, right? Because if you got the LSU win, that's gonna give you what you need.
Once it
And I
depends on
think
who that second.
LSU,
You can't slip up twice, in my opinion. Not with this schedule. Because who
what?
who
Yeah,
will be the second slip up? Like if you beat
but like
LSU,
I
right? Let's say
said,
you lose to Clemson. Who is that
mhm.
second slip up? I
But like I
mean,
said though,
unless
this
Miami
is
is
about.
having like that season, or Florida's having, you know what I mean, which I don't see them having a great season. They quarterback is going to be god awful. So I'm
Mhm.
saying who would be the acceptable slip up?
Like I said, Pitt could give you. I'm saying like that's the only team I can look at. But the thing about it, Pitt got Phil Jacovic as the quarterback, and I think Phil Jacovic is a good quarterback. But Phil Jacovic gets hurt, so if you play Pitt in week, let's say you replaced it Pitt in week 3 instead of Boston College, you
Mm-hmm.
played Pitt there. That would be a more
Right.
daunting test to me because then with Phil, if he healthy early, that'd be a better game to me, right? But because you played
Yeah.
him so late, he'll probably be out for the game. Knowing Phil, he's always hurt.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm just saying. So
No, you're right.
to me, it's a pretty favorable schedule. Nobody should be complaining about the schedule. I think LSU's gonna be tough, but and
Absolutely.
I do think LSU's gonna be really tough because LSU offensive line was light years better by the end of the season than it was that first game. They was a disaster that first game, right? So this game, so
Damn.
now they settled in on what they want to do with offensive line wise. Neighbors is a really good wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Harold Perkins he's probably gonna be like a top 10 pick when he does get
Him.
drafted.
Yeah, him. Yeah.
Yeah, Harold Perkins is a beast, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's a chance you're gonna have a really difficult time blocking him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Mason will be healthy, so he's gonna want to get his get back. So LSU's gonna be tough. I think you can beat LSU because I think you've done things to solidify your offensive line and defensive lines that should allow you to hold up, right, and
And
win
that's
that
exactly what
game.
I was gonna say. Yeah.
But I do think because LSU's bringing in the number 1 transfer class to go along with a top 5 recruiting class again.
Mm-hmm.
So they solidify. You know, they've done a hell of a job, in my opinion, turning that roster into a roster that's going to compete for national championships. This year and next year. As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So they're gonna be
And
tough.
I agree with
LSU's
you.
gonna be tough.
Where I give Florida State the advantage is offense, right? I still as good as Daniels played at the end of the last season, he's still limited
I don't
as a
think I
quarterback.
don't think Daniels is gonna be the quarterback on that first game. To be honest with you, I
Daniels
don't.
came back to not be the quarterback next season.
I just don't think he's gonna be the quarterback because, when he went out that game against Georgia and they put the other guy in the game, The way they were throwing the football in that game with him in there against Georgia, they put up a lot of points. Well, they didn't put up a lot of points. They got up and down the field a lot in that game with the other quarterback. In my opinion,
I would be wildly surprised
I think they're going to
if
be
Daniels in the
having
quarterback.
I think they're going to have like two quarterbacks. I think they're going to be bright at both of those quarterbacks. I mean, Daniels, where was he going at? I mean, Daniels is not an NFL quarterback.
He could have transferred if he knew that he wasn't going to be the starter next year. Daniels absolutely would have transferred because he want to play. Like that was the reason why he transferred to LSU. Man, that's I can't argue with what you're saying about the other quarter. I'm just saying I think if Daniels felt like they weren't 100% behind him, I think Daniels would have left. That's my opinion. I'm looking at this and I'm saying Florida State should win that game because Jaden Daniels, I think, is still limited. If I have to go quarterback for quarterback, I believe Jordan Travis will make more plays than Jaden Daniels. That's really what it boils down to. And Florida State has a ton of playmakers, ton, an abundance of talent on offense. I never thought I'd see the day, or at least I wouldn't have thought I said that going into last season. But Florida State has a abundance of talent. There is zero drop off, even when you get to the some of the younger guys. Like they're going to be able to cycle in a bunch of receivers, and they got a quarterback who's 30 years old, who make all the plays that you need. You know what I mean? Who knows this system? Who Mike Norvell trusts? Who is saying all the right things in the offseason and doing all the right things in the offseason? You have a legit leader in that locker room.
Yeah,
it's hard for me to look at that and say they're going to be able to outscore Florida. That's the thing. That's the reason why I say it's I got Florida State going undefeated. I can't see who can stop Florida State on offense. Even defensively, I never believe in Adam Fuller. But even if defensively we say, let's see what happens on the back end. I still think there's some problems on the back end, which we hope Surtain will fix. But even if it gives them some adjustment time, right, to figuring that part out. Offensively, man, how in the world do you stop Benson, Toafili, Travis, and all those receivers?
Yeah,
if you got any time, is they should be averaging, in my opinion, high 30s a game.
Yeah, because on this, Garrett Nussmeier was the other quarterback. Against Georgia, he went 15 for 27, 294 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Against Purdue, he went 11 of 15, 173 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. So his last 2 games was pretty good, right?
I actually prefer Nussmeier. I ain't gonna lie to you. Quarterbacks who are really mobile kind of mess. I feel like they mess with Florida State a whole lot more because our edge rushers don't really be disciplined like that. I prefer Nussmeier, honestly. I find it difficult to believe that Jaden Daniels decided he was gonna sign up to come back to be anybody's backup.
That's absolutely. But so I just think the LSU game is an important game, but the LSU game doesn't kill you. I know me and Brian was arguing about it the other day ago, and he was talking about, he was like, "Oh, you got to win that." I'm like, man, I don't really, because I think the thing the committee has done more times than not, in my opinion, has sided with brands, and I think this year they decided not to side with a brand, right? They decided to just go ahead and put TCU in. Kind of bit them in the ass for that championship game, right? I mean, that game was over pretty damn fast. I guarantee you they wish they'd have put Alabama in there. I guarantee they were like, damn, you know what? Should have just fucking threw Alabama in here. You know, and just dealt with the backlash. But you knew Alabama would have probably beat Michigan, right?
Right.
And then you'd have had Alabama, Georgia.
They want to see that again.
Everybody would have watched that for that would have been something to watch for 4 quarters, right?
Correct. Alabama wasn't getting boat raced by 60, wasn't letting 60 get put on the head of the championship game.
Yeah.
No circumstance was Alabama getting 60 put on them in the national championship.
So I think it's a huge
TCU may never get back there again, for the record. TCU has blown their whole opportunity to ever get back there.
Well, it's going to be 12 teams.
I don't care what type of team TCU getting. It's going to be like,
but we're going to get into that because I mean, it's going to be a 12-team playoffs, right? Coming up soon.
True.
So they could see themselves back into the playoffs, right? So I guess my next question, since we got into the schedule thing, you think they can go 12-0? I think 11-1.
I think 11-1.
Where that loss comes at, in my opinion, matters, because I think even if you could just beat LSU, beat Clemson early, lose to Clemson in the ACC championship game, I think you still have a chance to get into the playoffs. Because you're going to boat race some teams.
Florida State in the ACC championship game still gets in because they will be ranked 1, 2, a 3.
Yeah,
You know what I
1 or
mean?
2.
And
Yeah,
they're
something
gonna
like
look at their
that. Yeah,
body of
something
work
crazy.
and the preseason hype and the team. And again, if they're 11 and
Mm-hmm.
1, Jordan Travis is more than likely in some Heisman conversations. I
Yeah,
think they will look at all of that and say, we still gonna put Florida State in.
right. So I
I'll
think that's
agree
a
with that.
chance.
11 and 1
Yeah.
Florida State
So
gets in 100%.
coming off of that, man, then college football is going to a 12-team playoffs next year, man. What do you think that means for Florida State, like in the future?
They should be in it every year. There's
Yeah.
never a reason where Florida State should not be one of the top 12 teams. With what Mike Norvell is building and has built, there's at this point making the playoffs is the given. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like if Mike continues to, we've seen it. It's another hot early class, right? So we look at this 24 season, 24 recruiting class. What are they? Top 5 right now. He
Yeah, but
has to
we
figure
know
out
how
how.
that's gonna.
I know, but he has to figure out how to finish that class. Finish with the
Mm-hmm.
top 5 recruiting class. I
Right.
haven't seen him do it. I ain't gonna believe he can. But if he can somehow figure out a way for them to go 11 and 1, he finishes with the top 5 recruiting class. At this point, yeah, you got to go do it. You know what I mean? Like every single season going forward, I'm going to expect top 5 to top 10 recruiting class and them to make the playoffs. 12 teams, there's zero reason why Florida State shouldn't be one of them.
Let me
Zero.
ask you this question:
That's
Do
two.
you
That's two
think
for
he
each
can?
conference.
Do you think he can? Do you think he can recruit good enough to win a national championship?
No, but this is where I've really gone back and forth. The way it's been, you had to have a top 5 to 10 recruiting class in order to win a national championship. But this portal thing, man, is really different. And I don't think anybody fully understands. I can get look at what Florida State has done this past offseason. They had a good season last year, and then went out there and grabbed DBs that they needed from good DBs. I ain't talking like, you know what I mean, guys who were rated really highly at other schools are now choosing Florida State. That's a 5-star talent, even if it's not necessarily a 5-star talent. And even if he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a 5-star talent coming out of high school, he is now a legit starter who's going to plug in and have immediate impact. At least so we think, right? We've seen it. So now we look at the portal and we say, I can bring in, I can fill my holes. If I got top 12, top 15 recruiting
Mm-hmm.
class, so I know I'm missing at linebacker or I'm missing a D tackle. If I'm good
Mm-hmm.
enough in the portal and I decide to embrace that portal, I can find me a D tackle. I can go.
Right.
Again, there ain't no rules, and especially now, I can call whoever school and say, "Hey, dude, you," because they know, it's a lot of tampering going on because we keep telling the South Carolina players. So clearly, somebody is a connection to the players over there in South Carolina. So I believe you can call any school's defensive tackle and say, "Hey, man, we missing a piece, and we're gonna be in the playoffs next year. If you at Mississippi State, y'all ain't playing no championship. You at Ole Miss, you at Arkansas, you at, some of these fringe programs or whatever. You can
Mm-hmm.
look at the transfer portal, and I can fill my hole at defensive tackle. I can fill my hole at DB. I can fill my whole offensive line. I can fill a running back need if I'm short of running back. And
But let me ask
those
you this
things,
question though: Can
we
you
never had
feel?
that. We never had that
But let
possibility. And so now
but
they
let me ask
they
you this
do.
question:
So
Can
even if
you
he can't recruit,
feel? Yeah, but can you feel? Okay, I get that you could put a starter there, but can you get a difference maker? When I'm talking about a difference maker, I mean, can
they've
you get a
gotten difference
guy?
makers.
Hold on. Okay, I'm trying to put this in the right verbiage for everybody. Can you get somebody that's
We
going
got some
to?
different, but go ahead.
No, I'm saying you can get a starter. I mean, as much as everybody, I'm gonna bring up a stat real quick, and this
All right,
is
while you
like,
do that, was Jermaine Johnson not a difference maker?
yeah, Jermaine Johnson was a different maker, right? Great
Okay,
player, right? He's a
and
first round.
and
He's a first round draft pick.
Trey Benson. Trey Benson is a difference maker.
Yes,
Those are
but
transfers.
you're gonna always be able to get. I mean, running backs. Yeah, yeah, I give you that.
Johnny
Yeah, I
Wilson
mean,
is a difference maker.
I think I
Jaron
think
Curse is a difference
Johnny.
maker. Like those are guys who Mike brought in, who absolutely are difference makers. I can't say that you can't
Okay,
find a difference
but
maker.
my point is, I think they are difference makers, right? I think they was difference makers on our football team. On our football team, they was difference makers, right? Like
Okay.
I'm just gonna bring up something. Okay, I don't want anybody get mad at me. All right, Jaheim Bell. I think Jaheim Bell fits Mike Norvell's system, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think Jaheim Bell is going to be really good in this system, right? Right? But
Mm-hmm.
Jaheim Bell at South Carolina last year had 25 catches for 231 yards, right? He had 2
Mm-hmm.
touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Jaheim Bell ran for, he had 73 carries, 261 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jaheim Bell had 5 touchdowns last year at South Carolina, right?
Mm-hmm.
I knew Jaheim Bell was leaving South Carolina because the offense didn't fit him, right? You know, they want a more traditional tight end, right? That's what they
Right.
wanted. That's what they want, right? They saw him more as just a gadget guy, right? Which
And who is their
gadget,
quarterback?
right? Well, hold on, because Spencer had a good year last year. Spencer threw for 3,000 yards. Spencer had 18 touchdowns. Spencer also
Mm.
beat Clemson. Just and he beat Tennessee.
Okay. Yeah.
We got to
You're
be
right.
fair. We got to be fair here when we have these conversations. I mean, let's not
Again,
always
I
buy into the
don't necessarily
narratives.
hate on Spencer the way other folks do, but I also don't think Spencer is a
I don't think
difference
he's.
making
I'm not saying
quarterback
he's
either.
great. I'm not saying he's great, but I'm
Okay.
saying he
All
did
right.
do something that our guy didn't do.
He
That's all
did.
I'm saying.
He did. He
Got to
did.
be fair. We got to be fair. So
100%.
we got to be fair. So anyway, Jaheim Bell. I think Jaheim Bell is a good player. I think Jaheim Bell in this offense is going to be a difference maker, right? But now I'm talking about on a landscape of can you can you beat not just a quality team, but can you beat a great team, right? Can you line up? Can you beat a Tennessee? Can you beat a Alabama? Can you beat a LSU? You know, can you beat the US with these guys, the guys you don't brought in? I think that's more of a question that I have because I don't think those type of guys, in my opinion, end up in the portal. I think those type of guys kind of go to teams that traditionally has been winning national championships. You know what I'm saying?
I'm gonna
Because I think
disagree
Johnny Wilson's a
just
good wide
because of
receiver.
what you said though.
Let me say this:
I
I think Johnny Wilson is a
okay.
good wide receiver. I think Johnny Wilson's a good wide receiver in the ACC.
Mm,
I think he's a quality wide receiver in the ACC. I don't think a team like a LSU, and I think even with Clemson we saw a little bit of this. I don't think he scared them. I think, and even Oklahoma showed a little bit of this too. They just kind of manned up
that
a
was a
little bit. It's
mistake
just
for
like, oh,
Oklahoma though.
well, I'm just saying, like they looked at the film and decided, we just man up, you know. So I guess my whole point is the guys that we brought in, they're gonna have to take some major steps, right? They're gonna have to take some steps of um consistently beating guys and winning their individual matchups, and they got to do that against some great teams. If we want to win a national championship, I think Clemson and LSU we get to find out early. In my opinion, we get to find out week 1 and then week
Yeah.
3. So I'm excited about that point. You know what I'm saying? But I just kind of look at it and be like, okay, I know you're better than all these trash teams in the ACC, right? I know
Hmm.
Jared Verse is going to have 7 sacks against Syracuse and 6 sacks against Duke, right? I know he's going to be great against these teams, right? I'm not
Hmm.
denying that.
100%.
Are you going to get blocked by what Clemson got? Are you going to get blocked by what LSU has? Because that's
Right.
now my new
It's
question
but see
now.
that's why he's back though, right? And I think this is where we got to say our guys are supposed to be improving. The
Right,
reason why Jared Verse came back was because he got blocked by Florida. I said that. I said that was bad tape by Jared Verse. Like he got
right,
blocked and he got blocked consistently against Oklahoma too, in my opinion. I think you looked at both of those tape. Yeah, he made a play when he needed to, but for the most part, he didn't make enough of them. He did
right,
not, like you said, he wasn't a difference maker against those teams. But he's back now. He'll be stronger, theoretically. He should be bigger, and he should be faster.
right,
So, and he should be working on his technique. So, if
right,
Jared Verse says, I'm gonna put in this work this offseason because this is my money year, and we know it's Fabo's money year, because
I
he was
mean,
same way, right?
Fabo's
I'm
been
just
in college
saying
for 6 years. I mean, you know,
that's my
but
point.
I'm not saying
Now
he's
those
bad.
guys should be
I'm
difference
not saying
makers.
Fable. I'm not saying Fable's bad, but I'm saying, you know,
I'm just
he's a
saying
good player. You know,
they should
he's
be
good.
difference makers on this line against good teams. That was the reason why they came back, in my opinion.
Right.
So
Right.
if they've come back, they've bet on themselves. I'm assuming they've put in the work, they put in the effort, and therefore
Mm-hmm.
they've talked it. We've heard them
Right.
talk. You
Right.
know what I mean? Jared versus and Bo Fabo have basically said Fabo came out basically was like, if I went out for those games against Wake Forest or whatever it is, we'd have won them games. I disagree
Mm-hmm.
with that, but I
Yeah.
like the fact that he believe it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I like the
That's
fact
true.
that he believes it. So then, good.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go put in the work. Don't miss no games. Stay healthy if you can. Or let's hope the
Right.
injury, you know what I mean, the injury luck works in our favor, and they'll be better. So they will be difference makers. I do believe that Jared Verse should be. I ain't gonna say will, but I think he should be a difference maker against the top teams. We'll see. If
Yeah.
he comes out
I
against
think that's
LSU, if he comes out against LSU, his 2.5 sacks, 3 sacks, and it's completely unblockable and disruptive, it changed the whole season, right?
right. Yeah.
I mean the
Absolutely.
whole season, because now at this point you have an unblockable guy on your defensive end. You got a sure top 10 pick. You got a sure maybe top
Mm-hmm.
5 pick, and he's gonna be unguardable. He's gonna be unblockable all season. Well, now you got a
Right.
double team. Well, that frees up Fabo to not have some one-on-ones. Well, now Fabo should be eating in there. You got the big
Yeah.
dude Fisk or whatever it is who also come in very highly touted. They got him as the
Mm-hmm.
best on the defensive line. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
He should be able to come in. You got some depth and backup with Jared Jackson, who should be able to come in so you don't have that drop off when he
Now
leaves.
Jared left to go to Michigan State.
Did he really? I missed that.
Yeah, he went
I
to
ain't on
Michigan State.
social media.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Listen, I ain't
Yeah.
on social media. I don't know. I'm assuming.
Nah.
But what I'm saying is they do have some pieces. They do have
Mm-hmm.
pieces that should allow them to be at an elite level when it comes to that defensive line. And in my opinion, the defensive line in the back half of the defense was exactly where that's where the problems were. You know what I mean? That's
Right.
where I saw the problems being. And so if you tell me those guys can absolutely be improved and they will make more plays against the good teams. The reason why Florida was in that game was because Jared Verse couldn't make no plays. Fabo couldn't make no plays. Those guys got blocked
Yeah.
all game long. Like
Yeah. They got blocked. Yeah. So
they got
that's my
blocked.
whole point.
So if
Yeah,
those
and
guys are better,
but that's my point though. But that's my point. I'm not knocking them. I'm not saying they can't win
yeah,
the ACC. I think they can win the ACC with it. But and I think that's why my bigger point of why you have to recruit better, because yeah, I think you can go get you a quality starter out of the portal, right? But I think if
yeah.
you're talking about getting guys that's gonna consistently blow shit up, I mean they went and got the kid Edmond from South Carolina, right?
Mm-hmm.
The defensive end. Edmond had 2 sacks last year. You know, Edmond had 15 tackles. I'm sorry, he had 39 tackles. Okay,
Yeah, but I mean,
that's a
Johnny Wilson
starter,
had 2 catches or whatever it was before he
right?
got
But
here, and he was our
okay,
best receiver. Sometimes it
right.
really is just the
But
scheme that we signed up for is not the best
you
scheme
get
that we should be in. I
you
think
get
Jaheim Bell,
right,
like you said, will
but
flourish in the system, and his numbers
right.
are
But I
going to show
think
that
you
at South
get
Carolina.
you come to Florida State and you have an opportunity to play. Right, you have because it wasn't a lot of talent here, so you get an opportunity to come in and play, and you get a chance to make plays, right? And I'm not
Right.
knocking it; I'm saying that's great, and I'm glad they did it. But my point is, okay, how does this translate into beating good teams that can legitimately win something, right? And I think,
I think that's
and
where your
I do
quarterback comes
wonder
in. I think that's where the
in
quarterback
that, in
comes
that
in.
right, and I think that is where Jordan Travis comes in, because I think Jordan Travis was a real difference makers against the big teams. Well, against the really good,
Mm-hmm.
other than Clemson.
Right.
I think Clemson had something for him that night.
But Florida, Oklahoma,
But
yeah,
to me, Florida Oklahoma LSU game, he
mm-hmm.
was he was the difference in winning those games, and I think he can still be that difference. But they're gonna need that defense to play better. They're gonna have to
Yeah,
be better in the red zone, right? Against the good teams. We talking about specifically the good teams, which on this schedule it's only 2, right? Make no
it's
mistake
only
about it, it's
it
only
really
2.
is only 2.
So we having this bigger conversation, but there's only 2 teams we talking about right now. Unless
Yeah,
Miami show to be something else, right? Which I don't think they are going to show that, right? I think they're still a year away from being a decent team. Um, I mean, but they could surprise us, of course.
I doubt it. I think
Well, yeah,
we
I
know
mean,
enough to know that they're probably going to be pretty bad next season.
right. But I'm saying, I mean, ideally, if Miami does get the coordinator situation right with the offensive coordinator, and I do think Mario's recruiting well, so he's gonna have talent there. Can he put it all together this year? I don't think they can.
But that's what you're saying. Even if
Yeah,
that talent ain't going to be there until
yeah,
what, next year, the year after. Yeah.
right. So my whole thing would be, but you do play them late, which actually that's a game. If I could have switched it, I'd have had that game earlier. I would have wanted that game like closer to like October, but it don't matter.
I was gonna say, here's the thing though, Miami, if the goals are gone by week 6, Miami becomes
Yeah,
a completely different team. They go so
right.
it don't. It could be right. It could be one of two things, right? It could be Miami
Yeah,
has won, is 7-1 or whatever it is, and now you catching them, and now they,
right,
got all the momentum in the world, and they still, or they
right.
could have had 3 losses by then, and now they just going through the motions, and they'll roll over like they did last year again. Florida State was not the Florida State, in my opinion, was not even close to being the team they are this season against
Hmm.
a Miami team that I thought was better last season than they are this season. It's
Yeah,
hard for me to pick Miami or see
but
that
I
again.
do.
They got beat 45-3, so it's difficult for me to
I'm gonna
even
talk about this on another
give a lot
pod,
of
but
credit to Miami.
I'm gonna talk about this on another pod. But I actually expect Texas A&M and Miami to make some big jumps because if they can stay healthy, because both of those teams was brutalized by injuries on the line of scrimmage last year because they was so young. So
But
I
what
do
do they
think.
have? Who's calling
Well, I'm
plays, and will they
okay. All right, man.
and
I
who's
get
their
that point.
quarterback?
I I get that point, but my whole thing is those are two teams I do expect to make jumps. I just don't know how big those jumps can be. They both missed the
Texas A&M has been recruiting at a top 3 level for the last. I agree with you on Texas A&M. It's hard for me to believe Miami gonna take a
Well, I
jump,
don't
but
think Miami's gonna be great, but I'm saying I expect a jump for them because if they can stay healthy and they recruited really good on the
what's
line
the
of
jump?
scrimmage, I mean I think they can get to, I think they was at 5 last year. I think they can get to 7, maybe 8,
Oh,
close,
okay. Well, then, yeah, I
7,
would agree
maybe
with that.
8. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Now
they
I'm
get the
not saying they're
7
gonna win
win.
that championship. I mean,
Oh,
to
again,
be honest
that's
with,
why I said
I
define
mean,
jump, because if
but
when you say
my
jump
big
to me,
thing
I was
is
like, wait a minute, you expect them to be good. If you saying they're going from 5 to making a bowl game, oh, okay, yeah, I agree with that. I think they'll make a
yeah,
bowl
but
game this year.
I mean
Yeah,
you could look at,
six,
I mean
7. Yeah.
we can have this conversation, a bigger conversation about the big three. I mean, dude, the big three in Florida is trash. I mean, I'm not saying they trash compared to, they can never be good again, but recruiting, what the big three's been the last 10 years, I mean, it's been bad. It's been bad.
Well,
No
that's the
team
problem.
can keep momentum.
We can't keep our elite
No,
guys. That
yeah,
Florida has never had a problem. The state of Florida, I don't mean the Gator. The state of Florida has never had a problem of keeping their elite players here in Florida. Either they were going to Florida, Miami, or Florida State.
yeah,
That was it.
yeah,
On occasion, Miami, Alabama, or Georgia would grab one. Or Ohio State, Michigan. I remember when Harbaugh first got there, he was coming down and he would grab a guy every now and then. But it was very rare. And Urban Meyer could come here because he had the Florida ties, and he could come here and steal a guy here and there when he was up at Ohio State. But for the most part, Florida has, as a state, has kept their elite guys here. At this point, we picking like 5th or 6th behind Georgia,
yeah. I
Bama,
mean,
Ohio State, and USC. And I'm like, when did we get here? You know what I mean?
all
When
of
did we
them,
get to
and
the place where we can't keep? That's what I mean. Like, I ain't talking Florida State.
it's
I mean,
ridiculous.
when
Yeah,
did we, as a big three, get to the place where we can't keep any of our elite guys in state?
yeah,
I don't understand it. And Mario Cristobal is supposed to be a good recruiter. He can't keep them guys there. I don't think Billy Napier is shit, so I don't expect him to. And Mike Norvell hadn't shown the ability to do it either. Who is the
yeah.
coach, or what is it going to take to get the Florida guys back in Florida? I'm looking at a running back out of Oakleaf, who I said should come to Florida State, who I said was a fan of Florida State, and I don't know why we're not recruiting him, but apparently he got Georgia as an offer.
Right.
Oakleaf is in our backyard. You know what I mean? Like, I keep saying, I've been on this kid. I've coached him when he was in middle school. I've seen this guy play. I keep saying he's gonna be the truth. And all right, I kept saying Florida State gonna be in on that. They over that. And nobody's went and talked to him.
Yeah, but I
This is the
mean,
second player from that specific school, because I know that school, that
yeah,
has gone on. That wide receiver went to Utah. Utah.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, dog, what are we doing when we're letting good wide receivers, good DBs, good running backs, good defensive linemen, all throughout the state of Florida, go
I
to
mean,
Utahs and Georgias and Alabamas, and
I
like
mean, think about
we
it.
have to, man, we have to fix
We
that.
gotta. I tell you what's funny, dude. We got a need at linebacker, right?
Mm-hmm.
We recruited the linebacker from that was committed to North Texas from Texas, right?
Mm-hmm.
South Carolina got a 4-star linebacker, Grayson Howard, that went to school at Jackson. He's like their fourth best player in their class. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So
And
it
this
is
is
one
what
of
I'm talking
those.
about. Now he'll
Yeah,
be a Florida State.
it's just.
He'll be a Seminole in a couple years.
I mean,
Because
we're
you
gonna
know
we're
what
gonna
I mean.
pray and hope. We're gonna pray and hope that it happens. But if that's your recruiting strategy, it's not much of a strategy. So these,
It's not a
I
strategy at
think
all.
the big three are, like I said, Florida State got to find a way to be consistent, right? You got to keep consistently stacking 10-win seasons, right? Um, I do think if Miami, I think Mario Cristobal is going to recruit well there as long as he's there, right? I don't think his class
Mm-hmm.
will ever fall below 10. I mean, he just brought in a number
Agreed.
7 class. He brought a number
With
7
nothing.
class after
Yeah.
that shit show last year.
Yeah. Well, I
You
gotta say with
know,
no proof of concept.
I mean, I'm not even finna get in a debate with people about that. That's just damn good recruiting, in my opinion. I don't care if he paid for every kid on the damn class. I don't give a shit. That's good recruiting. You do that,
I
that's
keep
good
saying,
recruiting.
if we
Period.
know these are the rules, then play by those rules. If we again, when you play Uno, we call at the beginning, we stack it. If we are playing,
Yeah,
if that's the rules, we all
yeah,
stack. I can't say I ain't gonna stack because I don't believe in that. No, I'm
yeah,
gonna have to stack my cards because this is the way that I'm gonna be able to win the game. I don't believe
yeah.
in stacking, but it don't matter. So if
But I,
Miami is paying everybody with a billionaire, then Florida State has some billionaires that they know. You need to call up that dude. Hey dog, we
yeah,
need you to start just paying these dudes so we can have the top. Like if those are the rules, go. The only person, the only coach who I've seen who can say I ain't paying these dudes, get the fuck out of my face, Nick Saban. Nick Saban's the only one, and that was an article about it. It was that surprising that
I
Nick
don't
Saban
believe
was
him.
like, I'm not paying
I
you
don't
this.
believe
Fuck
him.
you. I find another you. Like
I don't believe him.
I got used lined up. I got used lined up down the block. We
Yeah,
don't need you. Peace. I'll find somebody
but
who
I
play
don't.
for free, which is also
But my,
amazing as hell that Nick Saban can find people to still play for free. Nick Saban's a cheat
yeah,
code, and I don't think we talk about it
yeah,
enough. But
yeah. He's also lying. But anyway, um,
he ain't pay him. You think he lying? Hold on, now we can't just throw that out there and
the man's
let it move
lying.
on.
He's lying. He's lying. Everybody knows he's lying. He's lying. He's clearly lying.
He said he ain't paid them kids.
This man just brought in the number
That's what
one. He just brought
he
in the
did.
number
Just
one
bring in the
recruiting
number one class. He
class.
paid a lot of
That's
kids.
one of the
Yeah,
top 3 classes ever recruited in college football
yeah,
history
yeah. He
in
paid
the
a lot of
NIL
kids.
era.
Yeah, he did. He paid a
He's
lot of
lying.
kids.
He's
Yeah,
lying.
but he didn't pay
Okay.
them two. He didn't pay those
He
two.
did. He
That's what.
probably didn't pay
Right. Call the
those,
Spanx
but
lady.
yeah.
Right. What? That's what I was hitting at. I didn't want to give. You know what I mean? I didn't want to just
But
identify. I was
but
just saying we have a billionaire too who got some money. Call the Spanx lady. Hey, we need to start cheating with everybody else. Or we need to get in the game with everybody else. They got Ruiz down there who's just throwing money at kids. Throw some
yeah.
money.
But I'm
Again, I don't
yeah.
know
But I
what the
mean at
return
the
on
end.
investment is, but whatever.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think if Miami and Florida become, I think to keep kids in Florida, I think these teams in Florida have to start playing for something, and they have to mean something when they play each other, right? Like you need
Right.
Miami to be in the hunt for the ACC championship when you play. Like both teams need to be in it for the ACC championship when Florida State plays Miami. Florida need to be in the hunt to lose something when they play Florida State. These games have to start meaning. It can't be 5-7 Florida State playing 9-3 Florida. 6
Yeah.
and
You get
six
a noon
Miami
game.
playing a
Yeah, a
9 and
noon
3
game.
Florida State, and
Right.
these games have to start meaning because I think that's why the recruiting was so well back then because any team that won that game was on their way to the next championship. Like if Florida State beat
Right.
Miami and they beat Florida, they was on their way to the next championship, right? And
Right.
that was
Florida
like
did it.
it was
Florida
a
was on their way.
reason to
Yep.
come.
Miami did it.
Yeah,
Miami did it.
Florida was
Yep.
on their way. Miami was on their way. So those games started. They meant so much that everybody watched the games. Right, they was on the prime time at 3:30. Everybody sat down. Florida State played. They got 25 NFL players on the field at one time, 22 at one time, 18 players in NFL at one time. So these. I think that's what's hurting the recruiting. Um, you know, uh, it's tough with Norvell. I don't think he's ever gonna. I don't think he's ever gonna be a dynamic recruiter like that. I think we got more than enough evidence to show that. I think he do got to become a top 10 recruiter though. I think this program have to recruit high school players at a top 10 level. Is he ever gonna be a top 5 type recruiter? I don't think there's ever really. I
Let me
I
ask you
don't
this
think so.
though: in the event that Mike Norvell fails, right? Would that be
Well, I
the
don't think.
reason? Is because he can't get? Is because he's not a top 10 or top 5 recruiter?
I think because of
Because
the
here's the
12
thing:
team.
at some point, Florida State will need to win a championship. Like I, we can say everything. We can like Mike. We can feel like Mike is the greatest thing since sliced bread or whatever, right? But if Mike
Mm-hmm.
keeps bumping his head on that ceiling, Florida State is not going to continue to allow, again, like you said, 12 teams. That means Florida
Well,
State should be in the playoffs. Florida State's not going to be able to go to the playoffs every year and get beat by Georgia because they
you
got
know,
better talent. Florida State is not going to be able to go up to the playoffs every year, make it to the Final Four, and then get beat
yeah,
by Ohio State or get beat by Alabama or get beat by USC because they recruit better. If that becomes
right.
the thing where Florida State is constantly in it every year, they're going to be in it. I think it's going to be very, very difficult for anybody to look at Mike and
Yeah.
say, Mike, we love you
Well,
and we appreciate
well, I
everything you've
think
done here, but we need a coach who's going to take us over the top.
right, but I think having a 12-team playoff, in my opinion, is going to kind of stop this huge coaching carousel every year. Because I think if you got 12 teams constantly, you got 12 teams making the playoffs, you're not firing a coach that's making the playoffs 2 out of 4 years. I mean, you're not gonna fire that guy.
Good teams do. Good teams will.
I just don't
Georgia,
think they'll do that.
Georgia was in those games. Georgia was in the SEC championship games and was
Yeah.
in the championship game, and they was like, we appreciate you, Mark, but we need somebody
No,
to take us over the
it took
hump.
it took Georgia damn near 15 years to get rid of Mark Richt. Because he would find his way in the SEC championship game, and you can't
Yeah,
fire a coach that's winning 10 games. I mean, you just can't. You can't. How do you justify that?
I'm
I mean,
easy.
I'm.
We
I mean,
we
you might
we
be
we appreciate
you.
everything you've done. You've raised our floor. You've brought in a sense of stability when we needed you. We appreciate everything you got going on. Unfortunately, we would like to win the championship. I don't believe Florida State is going. It's not going. 15. Florida State is not going to wait 15 years to fire. Georgia hadn't seen the championship since the 70s before they've now won these. So it
Yeah.
was a long time. They had a different expectation. Florida State ain't gonna sit around 15 years and let Mike continue to make the playoffs and New Year's Six bowls and not
Mm.
and not get and not have a championship in there. It's just not possible. They probably have. I give it four. Give it four playoff makes with four potentials. They go out there and get beat in the playoffs to a more talented Alabama team. Then they go out there and they get beat in the playoffs by a more talented Ohio State team. Are they in the championship game? They lose badly to a Georgia team or whatever. At some point, we can look at it and say, listen, Mike, you've done an amazing job. And we appreciate what you've done here. But it's
Mm-hmm.
just we got to get. Now, here's the thing. I actually think Florida State will win a championship in a couple of years. I can see there's a possibility you can catch everybody at the right time. You can put together the right pieces, portal it the right way, and maybe some luck happens. 12 teams, somebody's gonna get upset. You know what I'm saying? Like you can end
Yeah.
up playing the TCU in the championship when you expect to play a TCU in the championship, and now you got an opponent that you should dog walk. You know what I mean? Like so, yeah. I think a lot of stuff that happens is luck. I think Michigan would have gave Georgia a better game.
Yeah.
But Michigan got upset. You know what I mean? So I think I look at this
Yeah.
and I say there's a lot of luck that goes into winning championships. I think Florida State could possibly luck into it. So I don't think I do think he'll be here. But I look around and I say it's very well possible that Mike can keep bumping his head on that ceiling just because he has not recruited at a level that can get him over the top.
I think if you make it a playoffs 3 out of 4 years, 2 out of 4 years, I as an administrator, I'm not firing that coach. I mean, I'm just
I'm
not.
not. I am. The goal is a
I'm not doing
championship,
that.
man. Like the goals are a championship. If you cannot get us there, I appreciate everything you got, but I cannot continue. Like you can
I
look at
don't
it,
think.
right? You can project based on how your team is going to be. You can project based on how they've recruited and what's happening in the portal. So if they got the number 8 portal class and the number 17 recruiting class,
Yeah.
that team is not going to get you a championship. And I can
Right.
say that real confidently. You know what I mean? That you do not have enough talent if you telling me Georgia's bringing in the number one class in back-to-back years. That means they got a whole bunch of elite guys. Now, if Mike gonna still bring in the number one and number two portal class and be around the 10 to 12 range of recruiting class, I feel different because I think that can win a championship. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I think he's in a I got to do enough on this portal and I got to do enough in this recruiting to where I might be able to compete with some of these. Now, here's the thing: even with I believe Florida State going 11-1 or 12-0, I don't believe Florida State can win a championship unless some luck happens. A TCU or somebody else upset somebody else. Now you end up in a championship game with a team you ain't got no business. Who knows,
Yeah.
right? But I don't believe Florida State is equipped to beat a Georgia. I don't think you want to
I
see any
mean,
parts of Alabama.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, unless they, like I said, unless they drastically get better, and I'm not talking about better far as what you do in the ACC. I'm talking about like you're gonna need
Yeah.
some guys, 3 NFL guys on your offensive line. You're gonna need 3 NFL guys on your defensive line, right?
Right.
I mean, you need that
Right.
type of
Fabo, Fisk, and Verse are going to have to be elite.
third round
Not
type
against
picks.
Boston College. Yeah, not against Boston College,
Yeah.
but against Florida's and against Miami's.
I
And
mean, if you
again,
think about
well,
it,
not maybe not Miami, but against LSU and against Clemson. That's where
mm-hmm.
they're going to have to be elite. And that's what Florida
I
State
mean,
did. That's when Florida State was good. That's what they did. They
mm-hmm.
dominated Clemson. They
Yeah.
absolutely, their NFL guys they took over games and they embarrassed them. Jalen Ramsey, you talk
I
about it, one of the
mean,
greatest games you've ever seen played. That was a difference maker. He made all the plays in that game that
yeah.
was needed to be made to win the game. We've seen LaMarcus Joyner do it. LaMarcus Joyner's done it. Hell, we seen defense in out of Jacksonville.
DeMarcus Walker.
DeMarcus Walker.
DeMarcus
We
Walker.
seen
Yeah.
DeMarcus Walker take over games. We seen
Yeah.
DeMarcus Walker take over games. You will against good teams. You will
Yeah.
need Jared Verse and Fabo and Fisk to do that against good teams this year if they want to win, if they believe they can win the championship. And if they do, oh no, I'm gonna come on here and say, like, if they go out there at LSU and they dominate LSU's offensive line, Fisk get a sack, but he's disruptive, or no sacks, but he's disruptive. Fabo is disruptive. They don't shut down the whole running game. They're now one dimensional. Verse ends up with 2.5 sacks. The defensive line is just wreaking havoc all game. They can't be blocked. Oh, I'm gonna come in and say, let's win the championship. Let's stop talking about it. Let's go win the championship.
Right.
But if they go out there and they struggle and I don't see it, then it's gonna change my opinion a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, as good as Tim Jernigan was, and Tim Jernigan was fucking great here. I mean, Tim Jernigan was a second round pick.
Tim Jernigan
he's
was
a second
round
absolute
monster. It was to the point where you could be like, wait, who's running up the middle? Oh, Tim Jernigan on the bench. Nobody ran. Yeah. It didn't matter who it was. That championship game, when he went to the bench because he had to rest, that was when they got yards. Tim Jernigan was a absolute problem. And that's what you need. That's what you need Fabo to be. Fabo and Fisk have to be Tim and Jernigan. If you really want to talk about like a legit shot at winning the championship. That's what you got to do.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, I think they're in a good position this year to win the ACC championship. 100%. And for me, that's the goal. If they win the ACC championship, mission complete for me. Great season.
That's not the goal. That's your goal. That's not the team goal.
I have realistic expectations. I've always been this way, right?
But
I said last year.
Okay, so now that leads me to, why don't you believe a championship is a realistic expectation?
Man, tell you something, man. There's some really good players out there in college football. You know, and those guys are concentrated on 3 to 4 teams, right? If Alabama puts it all together next year, which that's a big if, right? They breaking in a new quarterback, got a new offensive coordinator, they got to break some things in. They put it all together next year with that talent on that team. Gonna be pretty hard to beat, right? If you meet them in the playoffs, it's a chance you get skull fucked, right? If Georgia was young last year, everybody said it. Georgia had lost 10 guys to NFL, including the number 1 overall pick in Trayvon Walker. They came out this year, they dominated everybody, okay? They come back with a lot of players, right? I mean, Kirby was making room. That's why those players left. He was making room. He was trying to make room
Georgia's
You
going to be
know,
a problem
so
again this year. Yeah.
okay, so if you meet them in the playoffs, they're gonna block Fabo, right? I mean, we watch what Florida did.
They may block Fabo. Fabo may beat Jernigan,
so
and we
okay,
don't know.
okay, yeah, then that's a great if, but we know what's gonna happen. They're gonna block them, right? So the game gonna be played on the edges. So I'm just saying, you just look at it and be like, if these type teams put it all together, now they may not do that. They may not do that. If that defense runs up against Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley,
yeah.
Okay, you may not outscore them.
Off.
You know what I'm saying? They put it all together. I'm
It's gonna
just
be
saying these are teams that got elite talent. That if they put it all together, you got a problem. You know what I'm saying? You may not be able to score enough with those teams. You may not be able to get enough stops with those teams. So to me, you can win the ACC. I really do believe that. I think the goal should be to win the ACC. I mean, as a competitor, the players, of course, they should think they're going to win every game and they're going to compete in that championship and win a national championship. If they win that championship, I raised my hand. I said, man, that's a great ass job. That's a hell of a job coaching, hell of a job evaluating. Excellent. I just do think it's levels to it, right? I do think it's levels when you play Ohio State and those wide receivers with a number one. Marvin Harrison Jr. could possibly be a number one overall pick. That's how good he is, right? Like that guy's hard to stop.
He's gonna give some problems. Cypress gonna have to be on his game.
I really don't care who you put up against him, what transfer you brought in to put on him. He's gonna probably go to work on him. You know what I'm saying? Like he was torching Georgia before he got hurt. He was torching.
We got an elite DB. Our Porter grabbed an elite DB,
and I think the UVA guy is a good player. I'm just saying, it's levels. You know what I'm saying? It's like when we was having a conversation about the 3 defensive ends last year with Kayvon Thibodeau, Walker, Jermaine Johnson, Aiden Hutchinson. Go look at those stats from this year. Jermaine was a good player, but he wasn't Hutchinson. He wasn't Walker. He wasn't Thibodeau. He's a good player. You know what I'm saying?
He was not.
Just saying.
Any of those people.
He wasn't.
No, you
but he was
correct.
a good player.
I can't deny it. He was not.
Yeah, but he was a good player. I'm not knocking him, but you do see, that's why Aiden Hutchinson's Aiden Hutchinson. Like, that's why Trayvon Walker is Trayvon. You know what I'm saying? Like you see it once the level of competition step, you're like, and our guys playing special teams a little bit, some third downs every now and then, but it's levels to it. It's just levels, right? But being a good college player, you can still be great in college. But you do see the step up, like the Quentin Johnson kid from TCU. And I think the Quentin Johnson kid from TCU is pretty good. Played against Georgia. They shut that shit down. You know what I'm saying? But Marvin Jones Jr., he couldn't shut Marvin Jones Jr. down. But they could shut Marvin Jones Jr. down, though, right? So you see that there's levels to it. Like, okay, the Marvin Jones Jr. kid is probably better than the TCU kid. And he's a year behind.
Ain't no problem about it. Yeah, ain't no problem about it. No problem.
Right. So, I mean, you start comparing these things like, okay, now I see why this guy's so great. Okay, now I see why that guy's not that great. You know what I'm saying? You start realizing it. You know what I'm saying? So I don't see, it's nothing wrong with it. It don't take away from that player being a good player in his conference or whatnot. But, to me, I think Florida State got top 10 type talent. You got top 10 type talent, you should win your conference. If you run up against a Michigan, do I think Florida State could beat a Michigan on a neutral field? I think that's possible. I think that's possible. I think you could go punch for punch with Michigan, right? They haven't recruited that way the last 2 years. You could probably punch with Michigan,
100%. I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think USC will be more difficult. I think Georgia would be almost impossible.
Yeah. I mean, Bama, that'd be tough, right?
Bama is also one of them almost impossible.
You get Nick Saban 3 weeks to prepare for Mike Norvell's offense, it's a chance he could shut the run game down with his linebackers and defensive linemen because he have a hard time against passing games, right?
Mm-hmm. He also has a hard time against mobile quarterbacks.
Right, but Bama, if you trying to tell them all they got to do is stop counter Trey, I mean, you get them enough time, they could rep that enough where they could put it into that shit pretty quick. You know what I'm saying? They could do that. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's just. I think
the only where I keep saying
it's levels to, and we know Trey Benson don't run well against sound defenses. I mean, he does okay, but he don't. Ward was kind of better against sound defenses.
He hasn't run well against sound defense. Don't mean he can't.
Yeah, but I mean, that's why I said that's why
there's
I like
a level
Ward so
of
much.
I'm going to improve a little bit.
Yeah. But I mean,
I expect Benson to be bigger, stronger, and faster this year. The same way I expect Toa Philly to be bigger, stronger, and faster this year.
but that's more of a wiggle thing though. With Ward, he could set blocks up and kind of wiggle a little bit where it ain't got to be blocked up perfect for him. You know what I'm saying? So that's why even with people's like, oh well, Ward wasn't going to find playing time. I get why they say that, but I get why they were saying that. But I think Ward was the better running back out of all those guys. I think you could put him against any team in the country and he could run, get yards.
Ward was not the better running back. Ward was the more polished running back. Like you said, Ward didn't have very many deficiencies to it. Like Benson had a game where he just missed the hole. He missed holes. He ran timid. He wasn't sure of himself. Right now, towards the end of the season, he didn't have none of those. But like Ward didn't. Again, Ward against Oklahoma showed that Ward was a better running back than Benson. Like in that game, as good as Benson, plays, Ward was the difference maker. He just looked at the game differently. He saw the game differently, and I think losing Ward does hurt. But but I think the reason why Ward left is Trey Benson is the man now. Cool, I respect it. Tip my hat. Go, you know what I mean? Go be the man. And they're gonna ask Benson to do some of those things that Ward did. And he's gonna have to be able to produce. And I don't, again, I believe he can. Benson has home run speed, and that was a big difference. I just think it's a big difference with the speed and the physicality that Benson runs with. So I understood why the coaches made the decision. But I agree. I don't think Ward is a better running back. I think Ward is just a little bit smarter. He's a little bit smarter. He has better vision, a little bit better footwork. But I think you can look at Benson and say Benson is an NFL player, and it's probably going to be a better NFL player, NFL prospect. So I can understand why they made that decision.
Right. Yeah. But man, it was a good conversation, man. We'll try to get back on here. Man, I don't know. I got a guess.
I was going to say I don't want to make promises because it depends on what's happening. It depends on what happens, how the guests.
But I do got a guess. So I got my guests lined up. So they told me they can go whenever. So I do, come back. We'll do one with the guests. And I'm gonna try to line up. I'm trying to get. I want to do 10 guests for the off season. So that way it's not. I'm not gonna create fake hype.
We don't. We don't do it, and nobody's paying us to come out here and just talk to y'all about Florida State, even though ain't nothing going on. And since nobody from the team, like again, if somebody want to pay us to talk Florida State every day, then by all means, I'll drop the cash app and y'all can pay us, and we'll come on here and just do a pod just for you. You know what I mean? Just for y'all, and we'll make up some storylines like some of y'all other people. But there's nothing going on. There's literally nothing going on with the program.
I did get hit up by a pretty interesting sponsor, so if that falls through, then I'll let you guys know, and that's something you guys can support. But it's gonna be the right thing. But yeah, man, that was a great show.
Yeah, absolutely, fun times. Shout out to everybody, man, who came in live, everybody who listened live. We appreciate it as always, man. Again, keep telling, man. Listen, there's no reason we can't hit 2,000. We was able to hit 1,000. We can definitely hit 2,000. There's plenty of fans here, man. So keep telling folks. Let's keep growing this thing, man. And like always, man, we appreciate y'all. And this is the Listen Up podcast. Sam, you got anything else, man?